that as people interact and interface with you, they're going to be well informed.
Okay, sure. As I would like to say, first up, I'm a retired single. I've been retired for the last 11 plus years. Of course, I'm happily married to Elodie Cage Smith. She is a French Martinican, our friend from campus, of course. And God has blessed us with two wonderful children. Our daughter, who's 9, Eden, and our son, Jared. Two, children that really make the quiver feel very full. So, family, we always huddle together somewhere. I must say that they are my life. We really are close, and even since I'm here, I've been, thank God for the internet. I'm really bonded to my family.
Yes.
And of course it's reciprocal. And they send their love and warm wishes. My children, they want to see pictures and so on. And of course they'll be following online. We're that,
Yes.
So I have a family of 3 other individuals, my wife and 2 children.
Nice. And of course, as they would have sent their love, we also want to send ours, just in case they might be looking on tonight or even tomorrow. We just want to also welcome you by extension. And we are happy that your husband and also father is here with us. Now, Pastor Smith, were you always a Seventh-day Adventist? If not, how did you become an Adventist?
Well, I actually was raised in a Seventh-day Adventist home. That's the truth. My great-grandmother received the message. My grandmother at the time was 14 years old. And she is one of the old school persons. And so I was raised in an Adventist home. Very often I preach I've been to some places where they comment and they said, you sound like an old man,
Yeah.
I was raised with my grandmother, and she shared a lot of biblical facts and history with me. Of course, my mom, Seventh-day Adventist as well. So I was raised in the church, but of course, I was baptized pretty early, baptized at the age of 8. But when I got to age 13, 14, I kind of assumed my own faith and walk, it transitioned, I moved to the level of that personal connect where I chose Seventh-day Adventism again for the second time. And then when I got to university, when I was doing, that was in my years of science prior to theology, I chose Adventism again. So at every stage of my growth and development, I must say that, I'm born into the faith, but it's also my choice to remain a Seventh-day Adventist.
Right. I love that, and I think it's very important for every Christian to have that personal journey.
Correct.
Where our story is not just our parents' story,
correct,
but it becomes ours. We are convicted, we are sold out. And, I remember my days in Sam CC College at that time. And, my friends and I, we had to answer some difficult questions about the spirit of prophecy and the Sabbath and the commandments. And we went through it. And at the end of the day, we were resolute in our faith. So that's pretty important.
Correct.
And we pray that all of our viewing audience, that you as well would have that personal assurance and, commitment to your faith as well.
It's a journey, yeah.
Now, from the time I met you in school, Pastor Smith, you always carried a leadership presence. There was something about you. As a matter of fact, when I came to school, one of the guys that people would always speak about in a high and respectful manner was that of yourself. There seemed to be an aura around you when you walked. How people looked at you. I'm being very honest and giving compliments where it is due. And I want to ask...
You're trying to make me blush before
the
preacher. Entire nation.
yeah, but that's true, you have been a great role model to many young men on campus. I must say that. And a big brother to many. And, also one of the other role models that I remember, I just want to hail him up if he's looking on tonight. Your very good friend as well, Sylvester Williams.
Yes.
2 solid senior men who would have mentored many of us. So I want to ask you the question, who were some of the icons and mentors that inspired you to bloom into that leader that you have become from since quite a young man?
Yeah, and I want to start by saying that I really appreciate the affirmation. I'm one of those persons that will say thanks for kind words while I'm alive, Don't hold it back. All right, so thank you for the affirmation. But really, it was just a journey of what I knew and what I learned. It was not anything I attempted to do. And ministry and church and leadership, it's just basically doing what you know and what you've learned. Yes. And so I've had some very good leaders, I must say, some very good leaders from the local church level. I have had, of course, Stanley Watson, that's my uncle actually, and I'll talk about him. Richard Blake, Shedroy Washington, my Pathfinder director, in fact. My uncle was my first Pathfinder director. Right. And we lived in the same home. And so I saw him demonstrated at home, right, qualities that he represented in church. And he never blundered. I think he has made an indelible impression on the way I understand church to be. There should not be a dichotomy between who you are at home, who you are at school, and who you are in the church. So, my uncle, Elder Watson, Elder Blake, and then, of course, I have had some very good pastors that really were good mentors, humble men of God. Charles Gittins was actually, he's here now. He's Grenadian now. Yes. But he was actually my pastor. Pastor David McKenzie, Pastor Exton Clark. These are very good ministers. And so Pastor Enoch Hamilton. I remember these names that really demonstrated a whole lot as it relates to leadership. And then we had visiting leaders. When Pastor Clive Dutton actually visited Guyana and preached, I was 8 years old. That's when I got baptized. Okay. So, there is, God has in his church, and there's a message out there for leaders, elders, Pathfinder leaders. You do not know who you're mentoring. And someone will basically model what you're doing. So I jokingly said to one of those pastors recently, if I do bad things in leadership, it's your fault because I learned from you, and the good I do, thank God for your example. So I would just want to send that word out to leaders out there, church leaders. At the local level, you do not know that you might, who you're actually nurturing and leading. And so, you have to ensure that there are not deficits in leadership, ensure that your leadership is tight, so that the youngsters around you would be able to emulate some of those qualities. So I really accredit what I know in church leadership to some solid men and women who would have really been in my experience as a youth and as a child.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Sometimes when you bloom into your own leader and mentor, it becomes a tremendous responsibility that you shoulder. Mm-hmm. Young men would look up to you. I'm sure back in Guyana as a youth director, young men would look up to you. They would watch your every move. They would look at decisions you take, your reactions, your behavior. Mm-hmm. And that's an awesome responsibility.
Yes.
To some people, you might just be the Jesus in real life. I'm not meaning that you are God,
I do understand.
Model of Christ.
I do understand what you're saying.
As a young man, does that responsibility ever get too burdensome at times?
Well, I had this English teacher who is actually a very strong Seventh-day Adventist. He also taught me English. And in looking at the Bible, as a major construct, I learned this years ago. The twinned, the hand-in-hand privilege responsibility relationship. In the Bible, you see the idea of privilege and responsibility. Yes. Israel, privilege, but there's a great responsibility to God. True. And in leadership, there are many privileges, to actually lead in God's churches. It's a privilege. It's a humbling privilege that God would use clay, to represent him at times. It is a privilege. But I've learned that the burden of responsibility goes hand in hand with the privileges that God would allow in your trajectory as a leader. So that the burden of responsibility is not a troublesome burden, but it is a constant call to a consciousness that you have a God to represent. So it is not an attempt to please the people, but it's an attempt to represent the God. Represent the God. And I think that is the constant reminder that you're representing God. So that helps along the leadership path.
Right. So it's a burden that you bear with honor.
It's a burden, yeah, but it is the burden of responsibility.
Yeah.
You owe it to God, and for leaders out there, we owe it to God, and we can only do it for Him. Right, so it's not even so much that hey we hold, but to be realistic, I want to share as well. As a teenager, I believe that God called me to some responsibilities to help me. That's my honest belief, because when you're 17 and you're a counselor or a club director, you really have to model some things for the youth. And in doing that, it helps you on your spiritual journey. So I usually encourage young people to participate, to serve God. Serving God helps you to grow as an individual.
Wonderful. Now, as I observe you, there are different hats that you wear. You are the youth director, so you are heavily engaged in youth work. But God has also blessed you with an evangelistic calling as well. What is it about preaching that energizes you?
Mercy, Lord. Listen, I want to start by saying that I'm not at that place where I'm comfortable in the pulpit to the extent that it's just a mundane thing. Yes. It's always a prep and prayer move to the pulpit, but preaching is an opportunity to really share a message that can impact someone forever for the rest of their lives, for the entire generations. Now, my great-grandmother, someone preached, and resultantly, our lives are still being impacted upon and blessed because she heard a message. And my grandmother, my mother, my children are being blessed because she heard a message. And so the privilege to share with persons a message that can enhance, it's not a fake product. As a colporteur, literature evangelism is a love. I'm not sure why I never did canvassing in Grenada. I always wanted to come here to canvass, but it never happened. But one of the things that I enjoyed is that the books we were carrying, it was well researched, put together, and so we took those products out there with pride, knowing that people who read them will benefit from them. In like manner, the gospel, sharing the word of God, I know, I'm confident that it will be a mighty blessing to persons who have access to it, and God may use you as the conduit. So that part of preaching, I believe, is one that, really stays with me. I am conscious of the benefits of the Word of God.
Amen. Wonderful. So before we take an item of special music, I have one more question for you. Now, there's a very interesting passage in the Bible that says, our gifts will make room for us. And indeed, God has been making room for you through the gift and the call to preach. What are some places worldwide that your gift has called you to?
Okay, that's a good question, and I just will randomly share some experiences I remember. I remember being in Cayenne, that's French Guiana, speaking. They gathered a lot of English persons there at the church, and we had a really good time there. I remember that, I remember there are parts of, the Northern Caribbean, St. Croix, Tortola, I've been to the U.S., several parts of the United States. Mexico, a place called Durango, Mexico. That, I felt like I was in one of those Western films. A little village, they call it, population 1.5 million. A little parish in Durango, and I think that experience marked my mind as I spoke, with a translator. The translator was an English student, right? So from time to time, she was about 16 years old. Wow. She would come over and say, could you repeat that? Could you repeat that? But Durango was a rich experience. Yeah. Of course, Mexico City as well. Population 20 million, riding on the buses and trains. One of the things that really I really reflect on when I was asked to speak to men in one of the maximum security prisons in New York, a place they call Rikers Island. There was a whole song, I never want to go Rikers Island, Caribbean people know that, right? But I was actually invited there and probably went through about 3 or 4 levels of security check to get into a chapel with men that may never see their freedom again. And I was so humbled and blessed by that opportunity to take the gospel into that maximum security facility on an island just off New York City. And so, wherever there are people, the gospel should be. That is what, that's the commission to every land, to every, language, to every kindred, to every nation. So it is not an empty tour or anything like that, but it is taking a bundle of blessing to people in various parts of the world.
And as you shared the Rikers Island experience, I remember when I was at USC, you remember one of the housekeeping staff, Keith John. I wonder if you remember him.
Yes, I do.
He brought me to an island in Trinidad called Carrera Island.
Correct. Yes,
that's where the prison is, and you had to take the boats to go there, and there were rumors that there were shacks around there. And, I had the opportunity to share the devotion there. And, many years after, my wife and I, we were walking down in the south of Trinidad, and a man was just calling me out. I looked at him, he said, "You don't remember me?" I said, "No." He said, "I was in the prison, and I'm out now, and it was just a very rewarding experience, is that, sometimes we go places, we preach, we never take note of it. And sometimes many years into the future, we get to see that at least one person indeed would have been encouraged. So as I just end that question there before we go to the special music, in your travels, how has it blessed you as an individual?
Well, I believe that if you are a conduit of a blessing, in other words, if you're carrying a package of blessing, there is no way the blessing will escape you. True. Wherever the ark of God was, the people were blessed. Obed-Edom, his household, was blessed. And so I remember that I was on a particular assignment, a youth week of prayer for a church in the U.S. And I had my personal challenges. At that time I was studying, and I needed a breakthrough to complete my thesis. And that week I didn't go shopping. I didn't go to tour. I stayed in, and I prayed all day. Sometimes literally prayed and prepared. 1 week, isolated from the world, me and God. And so I used these opportunities for my own faith-building experience. And so that you cannot be the carrier of a blessing and not a beneficiary of it. So every time you allow, God to have some virtue pass through, some should remain to be a blessing, So, that has been my experience.
Wonderful. Pastor Smith, it has been a delight chatting with you thus far. We're just going to take a break, and then we'll be right back as we get to delve a little deeper, as we unmask the evangelist, get to know you on a more personal level. Stay tuned and be blessed.
Amen.
Surely be me. I thought I could be what I wanted to be. I thought of myself as a mighty big man. I've met Jesus.